Sensory images and poetry. Words and images. Learning intention. Poets select words that evoke sensory images for the reader. Readers use sensory images to read and understand poetry. Success criteria. I will use a 2-column chart and list the author's craft and reason for using it. The materials you will need will be your reading notebook, a pencil, electronic device, and a sensory poem. Today, I'm going to teach you how to notice and choose words that create sensory images to read and understand poetry, because noticing the author's craft will help you understand, visualize, and enjoy the poem. Sometimes we can understand the author's purpose by thinking about the craft used in poems. Let's look at what imagery or sensory language is. Authors' use of language that appeals to the 5 senses in order to help the reader paint a picture in their mind. So when we're talking about imagery or sensory language, we're talking about using our 5 senses to paint pictures in our mind. We're talking about using words that tell us about what something looks like or sight, words that tell us about hearing or what something sounds like, words that help us to know what something feels like, which is your touch, words that using words and descriptions to help us know about smell, and then last but not least, we're using words in the description to help us to know about how something tastes. Now let me show you how to notice sensory imagery to understand what we're reading and understand and determine the author's purpose. First off, in the poem I've used the sensory images key. For sight, I used pink, hearing, yellow, touch, blue, taste, green, smell, orange. Sensory images key. Here's my key again, and here's the poem. The perfect cup of cocoa. The perfect cup of cocoa is rich in chocolate tea. Once again, I'm looking at, I use pink because it tells me how it looks. And always warm but not too hot, I use blue because it tells me the touch and how the hot cocoa feels. A steaming chocolate sea. Again, that tells me what it looks like, so I'm able to visualize what that cup of cocoa looks like. The surface is enclosed beneath the thick marshmallowy mound, so that tells me what it looks like, which is your marshmallow mound right here, which melts into a gooey cloud. So gooey tells me, if you look here, I'm looking at blue, how it feels, sticky, gooey, without the slightest sound. And yellow is for hearing, so it's not making a sound. A whipped cream swirl extends beyond the surface of the cup, and chocolate sprinkles added the perfect touch to dress it up. Notice that all of these are surrounded by pink because pink gives me a visualization of what this cup of cocoa looks like. The perfect cup of cocoa is like an old best friend. It's warm, it's sweet, it's such a treat, and yummy till the end. Notice that I use green because this stanza refers to the taste of hot cocoa. Let's look at the author's purpose and author's craft organizer. What would I say about the author's purpose for writing this poem? Well, the author wrote this poem to share with readers ways to think about the perfect cup of cocoa. Now I have to think about text, evidence, or craft the way the author wrote this. So the poet wrote, and always warm but not too hot, a steaming chocolate sea. So the purpose of that line, now I have to look at the purpose, or what does it tell the reader to do? How does it help the reader? Okay, it helps the reader to imagine filling the cup of cocoa because it says, and always warm but not too hot, a steaming chocolate sea. It also helps the reader to imagine the temperature of the cocoa in your mouth. The words are positive words. We can tell the author likes cocoa. Here the poet writes, The surface is enclosed beneath a thick marshmallow bound, which melts into a gooey cloud without the slightest sound. So here, this helps the reader to hear, feel, and see this cup of cocoa. Again, the words are all positive. The author is creating warm feelings towards the warm cocoa. You're going to use a chart like I just used for Author's Purpose and Craft to organize your thoughts. So here's a checklist to help you know how you're doing. The first thing you will need to do is state the overall author's purpose of the poem. Then you're going to give 2 examples from the poem of the craft that the author used. Why you're going to pick lines in the poem and then tell why they were used. Last, you're going to explain after you've chosen the lines. Again, the purpose of the author's craft element, what it tells the reader, or how it helps the reader to understand the poem. Last but not least, you're going to give your text evidence in your writing in the table. During independent reading, you're going to read and search for poems that use sensory imagery. You will complete the author's craft, author's purpose graphic organizer just like I modeled. You're going to use the checklist that goes with this graphic organizer as you read your poem. Share your graphic organizer in the class discussion. You may make a video explaining your graphic organizer or take a picture of your work.